I couldn't see any of my notes, so I just had to wing the whole show, and I was cat on a hot tin roof.
Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players. I'm your host, David Holloway, and I'm pumped as always to be here with you. I just had the true honour and privilege of spending more than an hour with Mr. Bobby Ogdin. Bobby Ogdin quite often gets introduced as someone that people may not be aware of, but I'm hopeful that he's got more and more notoriety as one of the most amazing Nashville-based session players of both the 20th and 21st century, I would argue as well. And for good reason. It's impossible to encapsulate the breadth of Bobby's career, and we'll actually link in the show notes to a list of the artists Bobby has worked with, but it numbers literally in the hundreds, and we're going to attempt to cover sort of 6 to 8 to a dozen of those in this interview. And as you'll hear, one of those includes Elvis Presley. So Bobby was the keyboard player with the TCB band for the last 45 or so shows of Elvis's career, but that is just a tiny tip of the iceberg. So yeah, I'm really excited for you to hear this one. So I'll let you jump in and I'll talk to you after the show. Bobby, it's an absolute pleasure and honour to have you on the show, sir. How are you doing this fine Wednesday morning?
Well, I'm doing well as long as I stay inside. It is 90s degrees and 90% humidity in Nashville this week, last week. It's miserable. So
yeah,
I'm doing well, though.
No, great. No, as I said, it's lovely to have you here. So, I mean, I've just said in the introduction to the show, it's nearly impossible to, talk about your whole career in the time we have together. So I'm going to jump all over the place with it. But I just thought I'd actually cover what you've done in recent weeks or months. So the reason I approached you is we have a mutual colleague / friend who has just been doing some work with you, recording on one of Brandon Flowers' new solo albums. So just tell us about your last few months and what you've been up to.
Well, as you said, I've been working, the last 2 weeks I worked with Brandon, who's the founder and lead of The Killers, if people don't know him by his name. And I was working for the first time ever, I was in a studio on keyboards with Steve Nathan. We've both been recording here for a long time, and we've never played on the same sessions. I guess we have different producers or whatever. So that was a pleasure. But this was a real trip. These guys are so good, so talented, so technically, musically aware that we had a huge group in the studio. I don't know if Steve had mentioned or not. We had a percussionist from here, a drummer from California, his brother on electric guitar, the two boys that make up the band Dawes, if you're familiar with them, Dawes, the Goldsmith Boys. We had myself and Steve, had Charlie McCoy, the Hall of Famer, on harmonica and vibes. We had Bruce Boughton on steel guitar. We had one of the producers, Jonathan Rado, who's pretty well known in the tech pop industry. He's one of the top guys, was playing bass. And that's what am I leaving at? We had acoustic guitar. We have Dave Rawlings. We had Todd Lombardo. I'm missing one. I had, give me a second. On electrics, we had Sturgill Simpson's guitar electric player, who is fabulous. Is just fabulous. And also had Jeremy Fetzer, I believe his last name, who's a Nashville player that I've never met. That's an excellent. This was all in the room, all in one room. Plus, we had Sean Everett was producing with Rado. He's pretty well known for the work he's done. One like the last Miley Cyrus album they produced. So that was a lot of fun. We played some great music. It was technically great. The professionalism was just over the top, and it was a ball to mix in. I started a letter to the guys in LA to explain how it feels to get a call to go play for a producer you've never met with a bunch of players from the other side of the country that you've never met or played with. You don't know you don't know what's going to happen. And as it turned out, it was great. It worked perfectly, and we all became great friends. So it was a good experience. It really was. So I'll go on and on. I could go on and on about those guys.
Well, I
But
do want to ask you more, Bobby, about it. So, because you've raised a really good point, and I know in previous interviews, as far back as 2018, you stated you were semi-retired, and one of the reasons was there was less of that stuff of in the room together. So, how rare is that becoming for you now, and how much joy does it bring you when that finally does happen again?
it's very rare. When I started doing recordings, it was common to have bass drums, guitar, a couple of acoustic guitars, piano, maybe an electric piano player, background vocals, and the singer. And sometimes you'd have horns or strings in the room. It all happened and it all came back. You heard the record as it was being performed. And for one reason or another, probably digital recording has helped to narrow down the number of people you have to have. It's dissipated. Those sessions are very rare. This was a rare occasion. And like you say, that's why I don't do much recording anymore. It's just no fun. You're piecemealing, putting in a brick at a time, and then that mason leaves and another guy comes in and puts in another brick. And there's no what we call bouncing of ideas. I really enjoy listening to what other people are playing and reflecting or somehow with it or harmonizing or counter melodying or everything we play, if we've got a group, depends on what the other people are playing. We hear everything and we assimilate it and spit out our part, but it all goes like this instead of one person going in and putting on a part and then everybody is dependent on that part. You can't change the original part. So you're having to just add to instead of embellish. And it's, like I say, it's just no fun anymore. I do that stuff at home, but I don't like going in the studio and doing it, under the gun, particularly at all. So I don't do that many sessions anymore. I just don't particularly want to and don't really need to. So.
No, that's right. And I know you may be a bit limited, Bobby, in what you can talk about this particular album because it's not released yet. I know Brandon's publicly said he's got 2 albums coming and it's that Southwestern style and that's public knowledge. But just, I assume he was a band leader from start to end. He had firm ideas of what he liked in the studio and loved the fact that you're all playing together.
Oh, very much. Because he's a consummate performer, if you've ever seen him. He is a consummate, and I've told him to his face, he's got the greatest voice I think I've ever heard. People that haven't heard him need to hear him. But they did demonstration recordings, demos on these songs in California, probably in Utah as well, and brought them in and had a lot of ideas for the songs, the layout of the songs, and it was all, clicked out. The timing was all clicked out. And so we used as part of our recording, we heard their demo as well as what we were doing. So there was more to what was in our phones than what was in the room, but it was just select parts. It wasn't pushing us in any direction. It was embellishment parts or some sort of tonal melody that they wanted in the song. So it made the band even bigger. So they had pretty specific ideas on how they wanted to do it, but it always goes through the mill and gets changed a little bit. And, with Sean and Rado and Brandon being so tight anyway, they would make little tweaks, like all producers can do, make little tweaks here, little tweaks there, or we would have a suggestion, or, sometimes a song would be going along and it would be, I would think, I'd think in my mind, this is too heavy. There's too much going on in this song. It's not allowing Brandon to come through with the feeling. And, so then I could stop it and say, why don't we, and anybody else does this too, why don't we start it off like this and just sort of filter in, and we change the whole song. Lyrics are the same, chords are the same, but the feel is different. And that came from everybody in the room was doing that at one time or the other, that's another advantage of having a room full of bright musicians as opposed to an engineer and a musician only. It's just you take advantage of everybody's side. The cooperative effort is really supreme in
It
recording,
is.
I think.
No, I agree totally, and it's and long may it continue, and it's lovely to see that Brandon's still pulling that sort of troupe of great musicians into one room, and you know I hope it continues. I do want to go back, Bobby, a decade or seven, and just talk a little bit about your musical upbringing. So again, I know you've been heavily interviewed on this. I know you moved from Detroit to Knoxville, Tennessee when you were around 8, I think it was, and that you
Mhm.
started piano at about age 4. So my question really is, you did about 12 years of piano work, just even those sessions the last few weeks and all through your career. What in those original years of training have held you in good stead as a player right up until today?
Well, technique. I guess you have to learn technique on any instrument, and it you burn it into your muscle memory. I don't know what the figure is, but the number of repetitions you have to go through to lock something into muscle memory is just phenomenal. And I got to do that at a young age when I didn't have a whole lot else to do. That's because I started studying piano at 4 in Detroit, and I wanted to. I really wanted to play. I would play the couch because it was kind of like a piano, and they finally got me a piano, and it went on and got me in good training. But I think that and learning to read music, early to where it's easy. It's not a difficult chore if you have to read manuscript music, or ear training was good. Professor, well, it was a professor. I was 12 years old, or eight, yeah. Al Schmid at UT was my teacher when I moved to Knoxville. He was the head of the fine arts department, and he discovered I had perfect pitch, or absolute pitch, not perfect pitch. It's not the same. And that helps as well because you can hear and instantly know what chords and notes are being played instead of having to think and figure it out. So made things a lot quicker and easier. And then as you get older, you go through the rock and roll bands and learn how to play rock and roll and learn how to play in a combo and learn how to please the crowd a little bit and learn how to show off somewhat. And all that, just doing that by the time you're 20, getting all that behind you, you've done all the hard work, then you can have fun with it because you've still got all the chops. And that's the same way it is now. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. No,
Okay.
that's brilliant. No, I think it's that solid grounding that sets you up to be able to expand on that. No, I think that makes huge sense. So, no, thank you. And I know you have told the story before, but I will ask you. I mean, what got you from sort of Tennessee to Nashville? I sort of understand that broadly, but it is a story worth retelling if you don't mind.
Well, I got out of the army uh, early, and what did I do? I went to Europe with a friend on motorcycles and ran around Europe for a while, and then came back home and had absolutely nothing planned for the rest of my life. I thought, well, I'll just, I was a transportation officer. I'll just go to Atlanta and work for Delta for the rest of my life, or I can fly free. That was my only plan. And it was New Year's, and a friend of mine from college, Tom Collins, who's producer, super producer, publisher here, Ronnie Millsap and Sylvia and Barb Mandrell, and on and on and on, called and said, you ought to come over to another fraternity brother's house. We're having a New Year's Eve party. I said, wonderful. So I took my motorcycle and went over, and there's a bunch of my college friends, and got to talking to Tom, and he had already gotten into the publishing business in Nashville, and just, why don't you move over? Basically, he said, why don't you come over and try it? You got a good ear, and you can play by ear and all that, and it'd be fun. So I did, and I visited back and forth. I'd go over for a week and come home for a week and go over, and then I finally just sort of moved over, and he introduced me to the studio, and got me some early jobs, and then it's all word of mouth in Nashville, and you just sort of build a reputation, network, and once they trust you, you're okay. But if it weren't for Tom, I'd be a retired Delta employee
That's
today.
right.
But I'd be flying free, so
Yeah, look, it's not to be sneezed at. And do you recall, Bobby, the first couple of times you were in a studio? What was it that hooked you? Obviously, you can play and you can play well, but were there other aspects of that process that you went, yeah, look, I'd actually love to do this for the rest of my life?
yeah, it's fun. It's very social, or at least I can only speak for Nashville 'cause that's the only place I've recorded, in residence. And I've recorded other places, but in Nashville, it's very social, especially the old days. Uh, Everyone pretty well knew each other. You could go visit other sessions and listen to your friends play, and you always met the artists. And there were no barriers at the time, no exclusivity. So I like that, and it's just fun. I like playing in groups. I'm not a performer. If I have to, I do. But as a kid, I had to get up on the concert stage and play, and that made me nervous as a crazy. So I like to be in a combo where everybody's collaborating, and I like that attitude and the spontaneity. And of course, I was just overwhelmed with talent that all these people had. The pool of talent in Nashville is just beyond belief.
Absolutely. Now, for the sake of our listeners and viewers, and again, apologies, Bobby, this is based on another interview I've watched you do, but you quite rightly outline the life of a session player, that unlike a producer that hears the song, or an engineer in particular that hears the song over and over when it's been recorded, as a session player, even if you're not a one and done sort of person, you maybe are spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on a song and then it's gone. So for the sake of our listeners and viewers, I'm not going to ask Bobby for particular memories of particular songs, because I know, Bobby, you've said a lot of it you just don't recall because it was part of the business, it was a job. Is that's fair to say? As far as it's more about your recollections of your experiences more broadly at the time. So based on that, I was just interested in those first few years of working in studios, where there's some particular sessions that do stand out to you after all these years that either helps you learn as a player or as a performer and so on.
Yeah. Matter of fact, there were two areas. I did a lot of dual keyboards sessions with David Briggs, who's just passed away recently, but phenomenal player, producer, etc., studio, everything. He did everything in this town, and got me a gig later on, which was pretty important. Uh, and I learned watching him because he was so experienced. He moved up from Muscle Shoals when he was pretty young and had a lot of experience in the studio. You kind of have to learn how to get what you want, what you're playing, what you're hearing in your head. You got to get that through the mics or the direct boxes, through the board to the speaker. It's got to come out to the producer the way you hear it, and it's not always what you think it is. It's funny to sometimes solo piano parts because they sound wonky, because you can't play the whole a mass of chords because you just clog things up. You've got to be able to push your sound through to enhance what's going on. So I learned that from David. And the other one was I did a lot of sessions with Pig Robbins, who is the king of country piano, Hall of Famer as well. And his clean playing and the way he could get his part through, no matter how big the band was, you could always hear Pig's part because it was so concise and so clearly played. And of course, he had a million great country licks that we all stole. We've all lived on Pig's licks, and everyone will admit that. That's no secret. But those two guys really kind of demonstrated what it was going to take, to be succeed in the town.
Absolutely. And look, because you've mentioned David Briggs, Bobby, we will jump into that a little bit. And as I mentioned at the start, we'll sort of jump between different time
Sure.
periods. But obviously, David Briggs was part of Elvis's TCB band, and essentially you took over from him. Do you want to just tell us the story of how you came into the band initially?
Yeah, well, Felton Jarvis was Elvis's producer, and he was also a good friend of not my publisher, but the publisher that I hung out with most of the time. The Combine Music was kind of the young people's place to hang out. It's where I kind of cut my teeth. Uh, so David had been doing the Elvis stuff for a while, and he was a good friend of Elvis's. You know, they were very close. He's probably one of his closest musical friends. Uh, and it just got to where David had to come back to town. David had too much going on, and no matter what Elvis would pay him, it wouldn't. He still couldn't afford to leave town, so he left, and Felton and I think and David and probably Bob Beckham, the publisher at Combine, all agreed that I was the guy to go in. So that was good. That was a nice look, and I appreciate that from David every day.
Absolutely, and it's worth again, if you don't mind, Bobby, just telling us the story of the. I was about to say the audition process, but there was no real audition process,
No,
let alone a rehearsal process. But just tell us about the lead up to that first gig in Arizona when you did start playing live with Elvis.
well, you had mentioned to me something about the most scariest moment on stage.
Yes.
This would be it. Yeah, I had no preparation, no rehearsals. I had a cassette tape of a show, and that was it. So I took, I listened to the songs, see how they were arranged, and made little 4x6 index cards or something like about that size, and wrote down the chord charts for each song, some of them I wasn't familiar with. So I had this stack, and I could look at that and play the songs. And so we flew out to Albuquerque, I think, and had no rehearsal, no sound check, and just went directly to the venue and sat through the openers and went on stage and, and fired up 2001. And Elvis came out, and of course, I was just overwhelmed. I mean,
Yeah.
his presence was, if you've never been around him, his presence was just overwhelming. I
Yeah.
mean, he just radiated. So then we started the show, and it was great, except for they had these Super Trooper spotlights all around the thing, and they were all on him. So he would walk by me, and I'd be blinded.
Yeah.
I couldn't see any of my notes, so I just had to wing the whole show, and I was cat on a hot tin roof. I was so nervous and so excited, but it was thrilling, really was.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting for our viewers and listeners that you literally only laid eyes on Elvis for the first time in the flesh when he walked on that stage when you were already there standing ready to
Right,
play.
right.
So, because I believe there was some sort of leapfrog arrangement. Essentially, he would go to the next city,
Yeah,
and you would.
he'd take the Lisa Marie, the big jet, and we had our plane, and he'd fly after the show. We'd fly the next morning, and when we'd arrive, he'd be asleep. We'd go to the venue. He'd be waking up. He'd come to the venue, do the show, go to his plane, and off to the next city. So yeah, leapfrogging. By the way, that was the first record I ever bought. Was I was looking for I can't remember. I was looking for an Elvis single. He's just started, and I had to settle for "Don't Be Cruel,"
Okay.
backed with Hound Dog. I was looking for "Heartbreak Hotel."
Oh yeah.
That was my first 45.
That's amazing. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, as you said, it was a pinch yourself moment that first night on stage. Across those 45 or so shows that you did play in 1977 up until Elvis sadly passed away, what did you learn as a musician, both about the parts you were playing, but also from a performance viewpoint, watching him and the band more broadly? Like, it must have been a massive learning experience in spite of your experience up until that date.
Well, it really wasn't that difficult. The music was so familiar, and the show was fairly, pretty much the same every night. Uh, and playing the electric piano and the clavinet, the burden wasn't nearly as much as it was on Tony Brown, who had
Yeah.
to play the acoustic piano and really worked hard. I think David Briggs designed it that way. I could kind of do whatever I wanted and move in and out. There were no defined parts for me. So it wasn't, it wasn't too bad. The most interesting thing was the energy that came to the stage from the audience. I mean, you could feel it physically when he walked across the stage. You could just feel this energy coming up to see. I guess it's all that love or something, focusing on him. And it's that little stardust thing. It rubs off on everybody. You feel a little bit of it, but as far as performance, I don't think I learned
No,
much.
no, that's fine. And I mean, I assume you were far from a stranger to either the Rhodes or the clavinet when you started that gig, Bobby. So just tell us about, the reliability. It all worked fairly well for you. I mean, as you know, they were workhorse keyboards back then. Just
Yeah.
it was an easy relationship with those boards.
Yeah, yeah, they all work. And I would assume they must have had a tuner come in from time to time because clavinets are notorious for going out of tune and sounding terrible. But no, everything held up well. I don't think there were any spares. Like, today there'd be a spare
Yeah.
of everything in a big show like that. But no, had no technical. I don't remember there ever being a technical problem on his show.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do, and so if you don't mind, Bobby, I'm going to move around a whole range of artists. As I said in the introduction to the show, you've literally either done session work or played live with hundreds of artists. So it's absolutely impossible to cover even a decent proportion of them. But I do want to cover one that showcases your skills outside of those of being a player, and that's as an arranger. So I know you had a one-off string arrangement, for example, with Roy Orbison. So obviously Roy Orbison is an iconic name, nearly up
Oh, yeah.
there with Elvis and so on. So just tell us about that, and was that how much arranging did you have to do during your career?
Not not too much. Not too much with live strings. That was Fred Foster production. And Fred and I were very close. And I guess they couldn't get Bergen White or something to do the arrangements. It was a pretty simple something. I don't even remember the name of it. It was a pretty simple arrangement, though. I remember that. And these string players are such pros. You just lay the music out there. If it's properly written with uh, um, uh, what's the notation?
Yeah,
The notation and the dynamics, if they're properly written, they'll just tear it up, and it's
yeah,
beautiful. So I did nothing but pass out the music and sit down and listen and say, "Yeah, great."
yeah.
That's the only live string thing I've done. I've done a lot of keyboard synth string overdubs on things, but not the same.
No, no, absolutely. And I assume you didn't have the opportunity to meet the great man yourself doing that arrangement.
Roy, no, well, let's see, was Roy? No, Roy wasn't there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And as I said, I'm going to throw a bunch of artists at you, and I would also love at the end, I'll prompt you to sort of talk about artists that stood out to you that I may not have mentioned, but one that, as an Australian who grew up in the 1970s, Lucille Ball. Tell me about what the relationship was there.
That's funny. That I don't know if it was Lucille Ball's special or Barbara Mandrell's special, but they taped a special
Yeah,
uh, out at the Opry House, and Barbara called me in to play piano because they were going to rehearse a few things and do a skit. And then, Barbara plays a lot of instruments. She plays saxophone, plays drums, and all that. Fairly good sax player. So the skit was Lucy was going to play the sax in a kind of a comedy thing, but she actually had to play a melody. And we got into, I guess, Roy Acuff's dressing room backstage with a little piano, and Barbara was teaching Lucille Ball how to play the sax. She'd never played one in her life, mind you, and so she was honk honk, and it got better and better. And by God, within an hour or so, we were on stage, and she sounded great. I
wow.
said, I said, this woman is just a trooper talent. I mean, a trooper talent. But I was impressed.
That's amazing. I love
I
that.
tried to play sax one time in our combo, somebody else's combo. I grabbed one of their saxes, and all I could do is go on
Yeah.
on the beat. I, c- It's horrible trying to play a sax.
It is that damn reed.
Oh, kills you.
It does. No, that's wonderful, Bobby. Thank you for that. To go from Lucille Ball to Kenny Rogers.
Great, great person. Truly great person. He's one of my favorite people to record with. He is so bright. He is so kind. He is so normal. He is so curious. He's so professional. He's so talented, and he's so experienced, and he's so famous, and he's so wealthy, and you'd never know it.
Yeah.
If he walked in, you'd never know it, except for, of course, he's got real nice shoes and real nice everything. If you look at his accessories, but I mean, just as a person, he's just the most normal, easy to get along with guy, and he's a true friend to everybody. He really cares about the people around him a lot. That really, I'm always happily impressed when I meet somebody that is so famous and yet they are so nice.
Yeah.
That happens in the studio a lot because I think the artist has a good deal of respect for what we do, and of course we got a great deal of respect for what they do. But we're more on the same mental level. Nobody's talking up or down to each other. Wayne Newton came in. Larry Butler produced Wayne Newton. We did a few albums on him, and I was a leader on all of them, so I got to spend a lot of time with Wayne and Larry working arrangements. And I never liked Wayne Newton in the past. I don't know why, but there was some reason I didn't like him. And I was so disappointed that he was such a wonderful person. Finally got to spend time with him and just ended up loving him. He was a fabulous guy. The same thing as Kenny. Just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and Wayne's such a true. Yeah, look, yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing. And speaking of icons in regards to country music, Johnny Cash.
Oh yeah, John. The thing I did with Cash was a tribute. Let's see, a tribute to Jimmy Rogers.
Oh wow!
That they did out at House of Cash out in Hendersonville. Had a pretty good sized group, but it was Cash and all the Carter sisters.
Oh yeah.
All of them. And we did it in their studio, and they would all be there, barefoot, sitting around, whether they were doing vocal parts or not, they were always there, having fun. And they would have, come dinner time, and would come their cooks and not servants, but whatever you call it, help. Their help would all come parading in with this silver service of dinner and lay out this buffet for us. And we all sit around barefoot, cross-legged, and eating with china, eating off what they brought us, and then go back to work. That was fun. It was a real family feeling type of thing to have all of them in one room.
And that was mostly piano duties there as well, Bobby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. But speaking of piano and being a keyboard-related podcast, I was fascinated. Bill Evans, what was your involvement there?
Well, Bill came in, I'm not sure. Bill was a good friend of Tim Smith, a bassist here, now is a professor at Union. I don't know where they met, but Bill wanted to do a country songs, not necessarily country sounding, but country songs, and came in and I wasn't very familiar with him, but he turned out to be a whole lot of fun. He's a really funny guy and great horn player.
Yeah.
But Tim just put those sessions together. Remember Reggie Young was on them. I don't remember who all the personnel were, but that was just a matter of being in the group that Tim put together for Bill.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and from one extreme to another, from Bill Evans to the Pointer Sisters.
How'd you find that? That was on stage for something.
Okay.
At the Opry House. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, so it's sort of more of a live gig. Yeah.
Yeah, a special of some kind. I remember Clint Black, I think, was on that. I don't know. My
No, that's
memory's
okay.
not that.
Oh, and I mean, given the amount of sessions, that's understandable. And speaking of the Opry, a regular visitor, or I assume a regular performer there, Tammy Wynette.
Yeah. Well, I got to do, what did we do? Some kind of a BMI presentation or something at one of the downtown hotels during Country Music Week, I think. All the label people were there, and I got to rehearse with her and do a number of her, just piano and Tammy, which was really
Wow.
fun. She's such a gracious lady
Yeah.
that, and just, that era, the voices were so unique. Her voice was so unique. George's was so just it was. She's just thrilling to listen to.
You've raised a good point there, Bobby. Over all your years of session work, what are the voices that have stood out to you as being? Well, oh, sorry, I'll ask that a different way. What makes a good quality recording voice from you as a fellow player? What makes them stand out to you? Are there particular aspects? It's sort of hard to quantify, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I know what I'm trying to figure out how to say. Uh, Honesty, um, uh, realism, uh, believability. I guess is better than
Yeah.
honesty, where you actually believe that the person means the words that they're singing. Sort of, I guess, a shy confidence type of thing where, artists know they're good, but if they generate the fact that, you know, they're convinced that they are good, that's
Yeah.
good for us. That's good for the product, and they perform well. Of course, just intonation and all that just comes with being good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the believability thing is the most, the lack of phoniness,
Yes.
because there's some phoniness out there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I might ask you, Bobby, to name two or three artists. And I mean, I can't emphasize enough to our listeners and viewers just how many names I'm leaving out here. It's insane. I'm leaving out people like Willie Nelson, Waylon
Um,
Jennings, a whole bunch of people. But just, are there some people that I've not mentioned to you that really had a big impact on you during your career, or that you particularly enjoyed playing with, or challenged you as a player?
well, I'm thinking memorable. I can go by memorable, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, Steve Forbert. We did, I think, Jackrabbit Slim down here. Uh, he was so excited. He's an excited person at that age. And we did the entire album live. I mean, live, vocals live,
Wow.
no overdubs. What you performed on the track is what you got on the
That's
record.
amazing.
Now that's kind of hard to get through some Nashville people's skulls, because they want to perfect their part, and we're used to everything being perfect here, and he's used to things feeling good. So we we were headed, and it rubbed some of the players the wrong way, and so we were headed out to dinner to Marchetti's, I think, and I was in the car with a few of the other musicians and Steve's organ player, Paul Erico, who he brought down for the sessions. We're going to dinner, and they got to discussing how this is not the way to make a record, and this is he ought not to be doing all this. And I was saying, well, if this is the way he wants to do it, this is the way he wants to do it. It's his record. So the next day, all the musicians were fired except me. Not fired. Well,
No,
they
but
were
yeah,
they were all paid for their time and all of the bookings that were in the next week, but he just cleared it out, cleared it
yeah,
out, and we brought in a whole nother team of musicians who were happy to accept the live recording
yeah.
process, and it came out great. And and that what was the song? Romeo's tune.
Oh yeah.
Ended up being big piano
Mm.
starring role for me on that song. That's one of the more fun things. Dan Hill up
Oh
in
yeah.
Canada, we did a couple of albums on him, and it might have been the first time we went up. Larry London, the drummer, and I went up and cut Sometimes When We Touch.
Oh wow. Yeah,
and
okay.
that was a really well known intro arrangement. And the arrangement was pretty much off of the piano part. Matt McCauley did the strings with the symphony up there. He basically just took the piano part and stringized it. But that was a big one, and a lot of fun. The Judds
Oh, yeah, of
were
course.
terrific because they were so fresh.
Yeah.
And Brent Maher produced that, and it was so carefully produced and put together. The economy, I guess, of instruments on those recordings is always impressed me. And I don't think there's nothing on those records I did that was impressive, but it was, every note I played was important to that particular
Yeah.
record, whether it was Grandpa tell me about the good old days
Oh,
where
yeah.
I had three notes I played over and over through the song, and that was it.
Yeah.
Some of their some of the songs I would listen. I say I don't hear anything, and I just lay down and go to sleep till it was done. But those were really fun, and they were a ball. They really were. Kenny, you talked about, and there's a guy. I thought about this when you mentioned who I enjoyed, and he may be obscure, uh, singer songwriter Lee Clayton,
Okay.
who's really well known in Europe now. He passed away not long ago, but he was somewhere in the Bob Dylan outlaw Willie genre. But I still listen to his stuff, and I still think it's some of the better stuff. Well, the Dream Goes On was the album, and it's worth listening to. It really is. It's powerful music. He's not the greatest singer in the world, but man, he was driven, and it was contagious on the records. That's a few.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you. And I did, when I looked through the list before we started recording, Bobby, I'd argue you're probably the only player that, because in Australia, the Highwaymen had a huge impact, which obviously is that super band consisting of all those amazing artists.
Oh
And I'm pretty
yeah.
sure you've worked with every single one of them. I don't think there's a person in that band that you haven't worked with.
Well, Willie Cash, Waylon, and
And Chris, sorry,
Chris. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, just amazing. And I do want to go back a little bit to the live stuff. So I know after Elvis, and there were other, obviously lots of other sessions and stuff, but I know you did spend 5 years with the Marshall Tucker Band. How was that a different experience for you as far as a regular live playing gig versus the previous ones that you'd had?
It was. The difference was the audience. I don't know, call them an audience because we played lots of huge bars. I
Yeah,
mean, huge bars. We always took pride that they would break the beer sales record the night we played. And it was, rowdy crowd, but a great crowd. Those were it was more of a driven thing. It was hard work. Those shows were hard work.
yeah,
Fun, but hard. You ended up worn out by the end of the
yeah,
night. Uh, but we got some good travel. I made some good friends there. Doug Gray and Jerry Eubanks and some of the boys. They originally took out when some of the original guys passed away or left the band for other things. They picked up a group of Nashville players, did several tours. I don't know, a year or so. They fell away one by
yeah,
one. They fell away and came back to Nashville to do their thing. But I was enjoying it so much. I kept on for another year or two, uh, which was good and bad because I had a lot of fun. It's a great experience, great credential. But at the same time, about three or four keyboard players moved to Nashville
yeah.
during that period of time. Steve Nathan was one of them.
There you go.
And Bobby's not there. Somebody's going to have to take
Yeah,
his place. And that guy was pretty good. So we call him because you have to you have to sort of rebuild your
yeah.
clientele list when you get back. But I wouldn't trade those traveling for anything. I think you miss out if you just stay here.
Yeah. No, agree. And I do need to ask you, on your website, Bobby, you list some of the instruments you've owned over the years. So obviously piano has been your go-to, but I know at one stage you owned things like an OBX synthesizer and a DX7. What was the phase at which you were using those sort of instruments?
I think what DX came in
Oh, I think it
70s,
was
early
very
80s,
early 80s.
early
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
I went to a NAMM show, and old Brian people were just unveiling this OBX, and I didn't know anything about it. But man, the guy playing it was fabulous. So I was enamored with it, and bought like one of the first ones. And I still don't know how to work it.
Yeah.
I've never used it on sitting over in the corner. I've never used it on a session. I just, I don't want to spend the time to learn all the technical side. I don't understand the waveforms. So it just sits. And, Shane
Yeah.
Keister could do all that stuff. That was great. He could have it. Then the DX came out, and it was pretty easy. So I went through the DX for, I don't know how many years. Wish I still had it. And then moved to Kurzweil.
Oh, yeah.
Got the first Kurzweil. I can't remember what they 2000. The
Yeah, I said the
2000.
I think you listed the K2000 and then the 2600, and yeah.
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 Okay. So then I now work with that a lot, and a great big one, Kurzweil, or what was it? DX1.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
Gigantic keyboard
Yeah.
that I used to, but it had great sounds. I used to carry it around. I left it with the cartage company to get something repaired, and I've never seen it since. So that was the one, the cartage company that flooded, so it's gone. I still got the 2000, and then I got the 2600, which is pretty versatile, K2
Yeah.
2600, and that's all I use. I've got
Yeah.
that. At home, I've got a Steinway, the 2600, and a stereo mic, and a set of headphones, and some monitors, and that's my studio.
And you're set. Yeah.
I'm set. I don't have to go anywhere.
No, that's amazing. And aside from having such an enormous career and busy career, you managed somehow to also play a role in supporting the industry. So I know you're president of the Nashville Recording Musicians Association and so on. So I just want to ask you a quick question about, over so many years of working in the industry, it's obviously changed radically. Do you still have hope for the future of the industry and the ability for people to make money or make a living from it?
I'm not sure. I'm leery. There's always there's room for a certain number of players to make it. 80s, 90s, the zeros. When there were a lot of recording going on here, there was enough master recording work and demonstration recording, so it was enough to support a pretty good core of musicians. You could go, 8 deep on piano, maybe, of 8, first call. Go deeper than that if you wanted. But we had the demo recordings, for the publishers would make demos of the songs they're publishing to hand to producers and try to pitch the songs. And a lot of times they'd copy that arrangement, or they'd just, take it and do their own arrangement. But so that was a whole segment of recording. Demo recording was a whole segment. Didn't pay as much as master recording, but you could make a living. And there are people that made good livings just doing demos or leading demo sessions. There were demo singers. And there was, at the same time, there was a lot of jingle music being recorded here. There were 3 large jingle companies that were producing for Chicago, New York, and everywhere. And that was a supplement and another source of revenue. And in addition to that, TNN was broadcasting country music shows every day, and those were all recorded pretty much using the same core musicians. So you could really support a lot of musicians. Well, most everything I just mentioned is gone.
Yeah.
Demos you can do in your house with a computer, or maybe with a little help. Jingles are few and far between. TNN shut down. And so you're left with master recording and some movie stuff, but master recording. And you can cover that with 4 or 5 guitar players,
Yeah,
4 keyboard players. So the group has shrunk. I don't see how anybody can really count on making a decent living
yeah,
in the future here. I mean, some are always going to.
that's
There's
right.
always star players here, but more and more people are doing their own recording, going somewhere else to put a part on, or you can do it with sampling and all of that. And AI is coming in. Who knows?
That's
No,
right.
we did a song last week. Uh, and they had a demo just to the idea of what they wanted for the song, just kind of the mood. It was a dark song, and they wanted this mood, and they played it, and so we were kind of trying to simulate that and on. And there was a part that I picked up, and they said, "You don't necessarily need to do that part. That's an AI generated song."
Wow.
So they just generated what they wanted, what the concept for the song, and it played a song
Yeah,
for them to give to. I'm going, oh boy,
yeah. It's
this,
certainly a challenging time. And related to that, Bobby, if you did have a young person, so that they're in their late teens or early 20s and they're determined to make a life in music, are there any pieces of advice you'd give them based on your experience as a musician on how to make the best of a life in music?
well, yeah. I was talking with somebody who was mentoring a young bass player and who wanted to come to Nashville. The kid asked, he said, what do I need to know how to play? What music do I need to know? And again, he said, everything. You need to know everything. Well, you need to be able to play everything in every key. have a, and you got to think it up. He told me about another kid that he had talked with that was doing a little recording on piano, and he said, well, I can play everything that Bobby Ogden plays, and my friend said, can you play it in every key? He said, well, so there's a trick. You got to you got to be so versatile. You got to have a great ear. You got to be willing to starve for a period of time, support yourself somehow for a period, like, if you got to wait tables, you got to wait tables. And you got to just grab everything you can grab. You got to play
Yeah,
for anybody, anywhere, anytime. And you got to go meet people that are kind of in your peer group, not the big shots, because they've already got their people. You got to meet the up and coming. You got to hope something sticks. And if
yeah,
you're lucky, really lucky, it'll work these days. It
yeah,
wasn't it wasn't that difficult when I came here, but these days there's a whole lot of chance in it.
yeah,
You get on the right session with the right producer and play the right thing, and the right artist liked it, and it sold some records. Then you might have a shot at doing some more.
that's right. No,
It's
excellent.
tough. I really don't advise anybody not to pursue their dreams, but and it's a dream now in a lot of
Yeah,
cases. Afraid.
yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, excellent perspective. Thank you. We'll move on to some of our standard questions, Bobby. And one of them is what we call tag a keyboard player. So, is there another player that you've come across during your career that you would love to find out more about their story?
I usually find out about people. It's so easy now. You can get on
It is.
Wikipedia and you can get on YouTube. And for instance, the people I met the last couple of weeks who were all strangers to me, I've learned all kinds of incredible
Yeah,
things about what they've been doing over the last 10 years and the music they've been making and how they grew up and where they learned to play. Um, And I can't, I'd have to go like back to Art Tatum or somebody
yeah.
like
How good
that.
would
But
that
I'd
be?
really like to know more about Art Tatum
Yeah,
personally,
yeah.
or Vladimir Horowitz. I'd like to know
Yes.
about him.
No, good
Uh,
picks. I wish I could do
Historic
them for you.
figures.
Yeah.
But current people, it's all out there to find out.
Yeah, true. No, that's a good answer. And then we do have the dreaded Desert Island Discs question, Bobby. So the 5 albums that have perhaps had the biggest impact on your life.
And I gave this some thought,
Yeah,
actually. Uh, The first one would be the Ray Charles album that had "What'd I Say" on it, because that's what made me get a Wurlitzer and get interested in combos.
Yeah.
Uh, then another James Brown live at the Apollo.
Oh, wow. Yep.
In another band. We played that entire record. I mean, we played every song
Yeah.
on that record in one of my bands, the Sierras. Let me think. Rolling Stones live, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out.
Yep.
That had all their great songs with the great lineup. Mick Taylor. There's Leon Russell, Joe Cocker, and all of them on the Mad Dogs and Englishmen
Yep.
tour double album. I just thought had the kind of energy I like. I like to play music just like that.
Yeah.
And let's see, I wrote some of these down so I would remember. Of course, Vladimir Horowitz, Rachmaninoff, Concerto number 2.
Beautiful.
No, number 3.
Number three.
I really had that's my go-to for just beautiful music.
Love
I'm
it.
sure did I get 5?
Yeah, you did. You picked 5
Okay.
perfectly. Yeah, no, that was great. No, well done. It's not an easy task. And then our final question, Bob, is what we call our quick fire 10. So just quick sort of answers to what are some fairly simple questions. So do you recall the first album you ever heard as a child that had an impact on you?
Yeah. Les Paul and Mary Ford, How High the Moon.
There you go. Perfect. Before, and I know you've done a lot of session work and it's probably been a little while since some live work, but before you played a live gig, were there certain things you needed to do to feel settled before you went on stage?
No.
No, there you go.
No. And interestingly, when I was with the Marshall Tucker Band, we had the drummer, guitar player, bass player, and myself were Nashville guys. And before the first gig, we were in backstage dressing room, and Jerry, the horn player, was warming up, and the drummer was warming up, and we were just sitting there talking. We all on stage, played the show. It was a good show. And they came back and they said, you guys don't warm up.
Yeah.
You just go out there and play. Yeah, that's kind of the way we do. So no, there's no pre-show anything.
No, that's good. If you hadn't been a musician, Bobby, what do you think your career choice would have been? Well, actually, you've already covered it. You would have been a Delta transport person.
Yeah, probably just because that's what I was educated or had the experience to do. I don't know what I would have done if I'd had a choice. I really don't. I have no idea. That's why I'm glad I can play music instead of working. I'd rather play than work.
Absolutely. Was there a favourite tour or part of a tour when you did sort of travel? Was there a favourite tour that you did that stands out to you today?
Yeah, the Ween tour.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't ask you about Ween because that's amazing. Do you want? I'd actually love you to talk a little bit about that if you had the time. Yeah, because that's amazing on its own. Yeah.
Shall I expound?
Please, yeah, please do. Yeah, please do.
Those guys are good friends of mine too. They've had a number of albums out which are pretty rude and in your face, and I don't know how to describe. Just listen to them. Everybody buy a Ween album. But they had songs that leaned country that they had written, and they wanted to demo them for publishing purposes, not for themselves. So they called Ben. I can't remember Ben's last name. The producer knew Charlie McCoy, called Charlie McCoy, and they were coming to Nashville to Bradley's Barn, a historic recording studio, to record these country songs, and Charlie put together the band. And so we recorded all these songs, and some people were shocked. Some people, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a real good time, and they submitted it to the label as an album. They liked it so much, they submitted it as an album. And the label said, well, you need to go out and tour it, support it. I said, okay. Charlie, of course, didn't want to do it. And they asked me to put together a band to augment their band. They got
Yeah.
a great bass drummer, a great bass player, and a great drummer. And they wanted a guitar, steel, piano, and fiddle.
Yeah.
So I got to put together the band, and we went up for a trial run to New York and played at Tramps, which is a punk club. A couple of nights up there, and Chris Harford opened with us. I don't know if you know him. Uh, and it was such a success. They said, you need to go out on a 6-week tour.
Oh,
So
wow.
we did a tour, U.S., all lap around the U.S. and Canada and back, and it was the most fun. It was it was a whole audience, that I had never
Yeah.
played in front of, music that I had uh, kind of played, but not really. It was just so aggressive. And the kids were like gypsies. They'd follow us from one
Yeah.
town to the next. They'd all be in the parking lot when you got there, waiting. And you'd look at them, and here I am, this normal type, boring person from Nashville, and I look at these people, and they're all in leather, and that nose, all the jewelry and tattoos and this and that and the other, and you didn't really feel comfortable. But then after the show, lots of them would come to the dressing room. They were
Yeah.
invited into the dressing room and hang out, and they were the nicest,
Yeah.
brightest kids you will ever find. It's just looks can be so deceiving,
Yeah.
and it taught me a big lesson about kids because kids are either acting out or actually playing their real role, and they might look odd to you and offensive, but they're not.
No.
They're a great generation of really smart, inventive, creative kids. That was a big lesson to me. But that tour ended up a lot of fun. We ended up being great friends, and and then it did a 20 or 25th anniversary concert. The boys booked the Grand Ole Opry House
Wow.
for 2 nights, sold it out in 15 minutes. And we did 2 shows there and just blew the house down. It was unbelievable. That's two of my favorite concerts ever. But it was historic. The tickets were extraordinarily expensive. They had no trouble selling them. I
Yeah.
mean, it was an event. And I think now they have finally quit touring.
On hold. Yeah. Because I think that original tour, Bob, was around, what, 2008 or so, I think? And I know there's some great video of it.
2000, 2007, 8.
2008, yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
definitely link to some of
Well,
that
no, wait a
video
minute.
footage.
The Ween thing was in the 90s because the 20th anniversary was in 2023, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Okay. Yeah, we'll
So
definitely link to
anyway,
some of the
it
footage.
was
Yeah.
way back when.
Yeah, no, amazing, and thank you for answering that. That's one of the best answers to favourite tour, and you've also covered off favourite gig you've ever done. I'd argue, but the one that I did want to get an answer on is favourite city you've played, if that's possible.
Oh, really? This might have been live or
Yeah,
recorded.
whichever suits you. Yeah,
Live, I think New York,
yep.
Central Park. We
Oh wow.
did. We did a concert in Central Park as part of a Melanie tour,
Okay.
and
Wow.
she is or was so loved in New York that it was just a love fest.
Yeah.
The crowd was enormous, and they just hung on every word, every note. It was so close. It was really great feeling, good vibes.
Yeah. No.
Studio cities, Montreal or not Toronto, doing the Dan Hill things. That time they were very, very cutting edge at Manta Sound up there. That was a lot of fun. The LA studios are always fun
Yeah.
and impressive. But I tell you, this thing we just did was as complex and well handled and interesting sessions as technically and electronically and all the links, production links they went to get exactly what they wanted to sound wise out of the not out of us but out of the music itself.
Yeah.
It was like light years beyond anything I had experienced.
No, that's amazing. And I assume, Bobby, you've never been down to Australia, or you have at some
No,
stage?
I
No,
have not.
it's
I
never
got
too
to
late.
Japan.
Oh,
I got to
Japan, well,
Japan
Japan, yeah.
once with Roger Miller. That was fun.
There you go. The next question, Bobby, is name a song that that you used to love, but through your playing career you've played it to death, and you'd happily never play it again, if there's such an example. And there may not be one in your case
I don't
because
know if there is.
because you've had such a diverse career. There may not be one.
I don't really. I'm trying to think something I didn't enjoy. I'm sure there is, but I've probably washed it out of my mind,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
it wasn't successful anyway, so I've never heard it
Yeah,
again.
that's right. No, that's a good answer. Do you have a favourite music-related documentary or movie that you've enjoyed watching over the years? Sort of whether it's a documentary on the industry or just a music-related movie that you still love today?
Not on a repetitive
No.
basis. I watch a lot of YouTube
Yeah.
stuff. Anytime I hear something or hear of something and don't really quite know what it is, I always like to go in and find out who are these people. What is that band? Who's
Right.
that artist? There is so much music out there
There
now
is.
because of the streaming. Uh, None of it's making any money, but it's all
No.
out there for everybody to enjoy. But it's a real kick just to do a deep dive, and I like to go get a name and go on the Wikipedia page and just go down the rabbit hole and
Yes.
just start hitting the links. Oh, his drummer was Joe Blow, and I'll go see who Joe Blow. Who
Yeah.
did Joe Blow play? Oh, he played with, and you sit there for hours, and then you go through their videos.
No,
It's a good time for that.
it is. That's what it's about. I couldn't agree more. And last but not least, what's a favourite non-musical activity or hobby, Bobby? What keeps you sane outside of music?
Well, I did photography,
Oh, yeah.
uh, baseball photography I live half a block from Lipscomb University, and they've got a D1 baseball team. Very good friends with the coaches and the staff there. And so I do, this is amateur photography
Yeah.
for sure, but I do photography of their games, trying to catch the action and the kids. It's living next to a university. You're exposed to lots of kids. It keeps you young. It's really nice. The atmosphere is just charged. But these kids are so young, so excited, so talented, so athletic that it's fun to try to capture that on still photography. And then I put them all up on Facebook so that their moms and dads and grandpa and grandma and cousins and aunts and sisters and girlfriends can go game by game and look at what happened and see their son or see that boy and his friends out playing ball. So, and I really enjoy that because it
Yeah.
lets me get into the game a little more, and I love baseball. So that's my
No, that's
spring,
great.
summer activity. Yeah.
And Bobby, that's probably a good segue. You've obviously hit a massive amount of home runs throughout your career. I feel like you've got a lot more to hit still. And
Well, thank you.
we always say to our guests, we feel like we've barely scratched the surface, and it's certainly the case with your career. And I just can't thank you enough for even spending this sort of nearly an hour and a half with us. It's enormously appreciated because it's just an honour to speak with you.
Well, you were so welcome. It seemed like 15 minutes.
Yeah. And there we have it. I do hope you enjoyed that. I apologise, as I said in the introduction, it's impossible to cover the breadth of Bobby's career. We could have spent 8 hours and still not gotten close to covering the depth and breadth of what Bobby's achieved. I hope you did enjoy what you did here. An enormous thank to Bobby again for his time. He's incredibly generous with his time, and an enormous thanks to the amazing Steve Nathan, who just recorded recently with Bobby alongside Brandon Flowers. Steve, we had the pleasure of having on the show probably a little bit over 2 years now, and I could not recommend highly enough checking out the 2 parts of our interview with Steve as well. Just such amazing stories come out of Nashville, and for good reason. He's just one of the capitals of music in the world, and deservedly so. So thank you, as always, for listening, and a quick shout-out to our wonderful gold and silver supporters, the lovely Tammy Catcher from Tammy's Musical Stew. Thank you so much, Tammy, as always. The excellent and sunburnt Dewi Evans from the sunny land of Wales. Thank you, sir, as always. The magnificent Mike Wilcox from Midnight Mastering. If you've got your own creations and want a top-notch job done on the mixing and mastering, then Mike is the go-to guy at midnightmastering.com. And last but definitely not least, and where Steve, Nathan and I have been hanging out for at least 20 years, and that's the musicplayer.com forums and the Keyboard Corner in particular. Do check out those amazing forums. They're such a font of knowledge and a great place to hang with like-minded individuals. Again, thank you for listening. We'll be back in a week or two, and until then, keep on playing.